Billy, a few weeks ago, we asked ourselves and you guys the question, where did your expectations start and where have they shifted throughout the season? Now, when we asked this question, the Wings were on a hot streak. They were top three spot in the division. You had three healthy, decent goalies. Things have changed a bit since then in both of those categories. The Wings are currently 3-7 in their last 10 games. They've fallen to fifth in the division, leaving them 2 points out of a wild card spot and 3 points out of a top three spot that they once had. Obviously, games at hand to be discussed, but generally, that's where they're sitting in the standings compared to what they were last time we asked. So the question for everyone is the same as it was a few weeks ago. So this is for you guys as well. Answer this down in the comments. And for Billy, how have your expectations changed for the season, if at all? So maybe recap where you started, where you were when they were hot, and where you are now, whatever shift you've had.
So before the season, I expected them to play meaningful hockey games at the end of the year and hopefully be able to make the playoffs. With how hot they started, with how our goalies were playing, how our offense was clicking, we knew that that wasn't going to be sustainable. But it really started making me believe that, we might adapt a Leaf strategy here, and we're just going to score so many goals that for now we'll be able to make the playoffs as is. And I think in a video where we talked about it, I did say that I would be surprised if we don't make the playoffs. And how would we be surprised? This last month, you said 3-7 the last 10. I'm pretty sure like the last 12 or 13, it's like 3-9 or 3-10. It's really bad. This month has been absolutely awful for us. And it has, kind of brought me back to where I was before. Like, we're halfway through the season. We've seen the highs. We've seen the lows. It could kind of teeter back a bit. But yeah, my expectation is to still play those meaningful games towards the end and that something is going to get resolved. There are a lot of problems that we have through the entire roster right now. I would be able to, I'd feel confident in saying, but I feel like my expectation is still kind of just steady in the ship. I definitely leaned towards more likely to make playoffs than not roughly like a month ago at this point, but
Okay, so it shifted. Yours have shifted closer to how the season started than you were when they were hot. Then,
yeah,
because you added basically before the season started, your prediction was that they would miss the playoffs. You've shifted. The last time we asked this, when they were in the top three spot, you'd be surprised if they missed. So now you're kind of leaning a little bit more to just play meaningful hockey games, might miss the playoffs kind of thing.
Yep.
I want to say that I know my expectations were hoping for a wild card at the start of the year. I thought we were going to be in the last hot stretch. I switched to feeling pretty confident in a top three spot. I would say I've done kind of the same as you, where I've shifted back to my original expectation. I still think we're going to make the wild card because it's like what you said. I do believe that the team is going to, it's going to fix something. And there's a few things you don't have to fix everything. I feel like we're close enough where one of the issues could get fixed, and that could be enough to where you're back to winning more games than you're losing. I mean, we'll talk more in the details on it, but one thing I know we don't necessarily have listed is I love that I've seen Patrick Kane find himself again. It was a little bit slow at first. There were some posts, but it seems like he's a lot more comfortable out there. He seems way more dangerous when he has the puck, or just even when he doesn't, just where he puts himself on the ice. He plays well with Larkin. He plays well with Cat. We already knew he was going to do that coming in, but he's scoring goals. He's part of the offense. The issue for me is still kind of what we talked about in the last video, was I thought we had a line, and it feels like they still keep moving names around. And, this is like the one spot, I'm typically the guy who is going to trust those who are the professionals, and I'll give my opinion, but I'm never going to be the one to be like, well, you're stupid. I know more. You should do. That's not going to be my take. This is the one on here where I'm like, I really struggle to see the justification of every night being a new set of lines. And I would love it explained to me. It's not even like I think there's no way this could be the right move. It's more of I've played a lot of hockey in my life. I've watched a ton of hockey in my life, and chemistry has always been a very important part of hockey. And I don't know, doesn't it feel, just on the surface without asking an expert, doesn't it feel like you are sacrificing the development of that chemistry when even as a player, it seems like you don't know who you're going to be playing with that night, except for the practice that you probably got put together with the night before?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on it. My only concern, or I guess like lack of confidence on the topic, comes in that I don't pay enough attention to other teams to know if this is happening all over the league or not. Like I know that even in the past, we had it with Datsuk and Zetterberg. Oh, you should pair them. Oh, you should put them apart. Oh, these are their stats together. These are their stats apart. And then where they talked about the same with like Draisaitl and McDavid, Crosby and Malkin, Kane and Taves, like all of these different levels of like, you got to keep these guys together. You got to have them build chemistry, or, oh, you should spread out your talent. And I just really don't know if other teams literally just have a top line that never changes. It feels like places like Toronto do, but I feel like places like Toronto do because their bottom six forwards are typically AHL caliber players. So you have your top six. Those are your top six kind of guys, and they're kind of locked into where they are, like Tavares, Matthews, and Marner and Nylander. Like those guys kind of just have their spots. That's where they're going to be. But early in their stages of development, were they moving them around a lot? Was it a kind of every new game figuring out where they should go? Halfway through a season, you should probably have something together. I feel like you should have the top line, and that's where I would like set my expectation. Your top three guys should just be playing together at all times now. But we've kind of just seen the inconsistency of this team in each and every single player on offense. I think I can think about, maybe except for like Fisher, I guess, but I can think of their hot streaks where you're like, yeah, that guy probably should move up from like a third to a second line, and this guy should probably move down. And on that same topic, is that possibly a reason why someone like Raz just hasn't gotten his feet under him? He's been literally all the way up and down the lineup, I think, in almost every spot except for number one center.
I mean, they had Larkin, and I don't even know. This is why I think of the classic thought is line one is your best line. Line two is your best line, or second best line. Line three is your third, and four is either your fourth best or your grinding line or your role players or something, or penalty killers or something. But I mean, I think it was a week or two ago, they saw they had, Cat. I don't know if it was Cat and Kane or three of our big guys or two of our big three names were on the third spot. So it's like, and this is going to kind of go into your question of, I don't know if this is just the new NHL, because the only thing that I can cite, and this is obviously completely personal memory of my own experience, but I remember when our team was established, and this goes all the way back to 08, 09, the 2010 times, is that when I would buy a new NHL game, I would go to play as the Red Wings, and I knew quickly, I'm like, oh, I got to fix the lines, because I knew what the lines were. So I could easily shift, like, oh, no, they only did, like, the game did it because it went by the player overall. But it was very quick and easy to be like, no, he's supposed to be with him. He's supposed to be with him. So I know there was definitely a time when a team was established where the lines were predictable and you knew who was on what line. Now, the question is, have things changed in the last 10, 15 years? Is there a new strategy of where players are moving around a lot? You're right. I'm just like you. I don't pay attention to the lines of every other team in the league. This just feels weird. It feels, and again, only speaking from what we do know, can't speak on what we don't. And if you know, tell us. Honestly, tell us, because I would love to know, because all we can speak to is that it feels like the chemistry is much harder to develop when you constantly are switching to a new partner. Like, I know on defense, I would have hated it, constantly having a new D partner to try to figure out my communication with. I don't know. Have the Wings shifted as they haven't shifted nearly as much on defense, right? I know they've done some shifting, but it wasn't like, but it hasn't been like Seider down on line 3 though.
Oh yeah, Seider's always been at the top, but like they've moved Wallman down.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. There's at least the consistency that Seider's your top guy, right? But if I feel like I'm not even seeing that over here.
But Larkin's always the number one center.
No, he's not. Go back a few weeks ago. Really? I'm literally talking. Yeah, that I remember that night thinking, how is this happening? This is where, because in our Discord, by the way, join the Discord, toxic free environment to talk about hockey in there. All you need to do is look back far enough. I'll see if I can find it for later. But I remember everybody was talking about oh, this person should move up, this person should move down. And when I saw the lineups get released and I see our top, what we believe to be our top players, listed at line 3, my immediate thought is maybe there's not even like a ranking system with these anymore. I remember it always used to be. So I don't know if that was like a demotion for the night, maybe from their last game, if it was just no idea.
I don't remember
don't
that
know.
at all. So
I distinctly do. I'd put anything on it because I remember thinking, I'm watching all of us in the Discord talk about he should move up, he should move down. And I'm starting to think, I don't think there's an up or down anymore.
yeah,
It's starting to look like it's just this is a line, this is a line, this is a line, and the ranking no longer matters. And that night is what sold it for me. Like there's no world where Cat or Larkin or whoever it was that's almost always on the top line. You've got 2 of them down at line 3, 2 maybe if you're shuffling a little bit of stuff around, but 3. I think maybe I don't understand how lines work in the NHL anymore.
I've seen Cat down. I've seen Kane down. I've never seen Larkin down. But
Yep.
I'm willing to be wrong. I would like to be surprised by that.
Well, not talking about the lines. Another issue that has started to develop and what we thought was a strength of the team is the goaltending. The strength in the sense that we like that we had 3. Yeah, we didn't have a stud goalie that was going to steal us a game, but we had 3 goalies at the time that it felt like we could rely on to be just good enough for this offense to outscore the other team. Well, that's not happening anymore. We got injuries that we've fallen into. Reimer has looked pretty bad. And Lyon, I was never on the Lyon train. I saw him and Husso. I see him the same way I saw him before. And I know everybody wanted Lyon because it was really easy to hate on Husso. But Lyon and Husso, to me, stats aside, individual like shots on net and all that whatever, stats aside, I see them with the same amount of confidence, just a different style. I see Husso as a more stay-at-home goalie. I see Lyon as a little more challenge, potentially over-challenge, over-aggressive. I don't want to say over-aggressive because that implies that it's always bad, but he's a more aggressive goalie that also is going to leave up. He's going to make mistakes like that. He's going to make mistakes just like Husso was. And both goalies are getting left out to dry at this point from our team. So even on their best nights, they don't look good.
Yep.
But now I think we asked it earlier. I don't know if you've looked since then. I haven't seen a timetable on Husso's return.
Not even a little bit. I did look that up. Nothing.
So at this point, Lyon's the guy, and we're recording this right after the Sunday Boston game, where it wasn't the best performance. Definitely a game that potentially could have been won, but the main goal that I saw and I looked at was the second goal, the 5-hole, and it just looked weak. And again, not piling on the goalies here because I've seen plenty of games where they do pretty damn well, but it just doesn't matter. I'm trying to phrase the question in a way that's not as simple as like, are the goalies a problem? But now that we're down to only 1 goalie that you feel okay about rather than the 3 that you felt okay about, I mean, do your feelings change at all there?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of how I feel about the roster in general is what I always said made us better than someone like Ottawa was the depth of our team and how I trusted, people like Fabry and Sprong to perform on line 3. Like, I think those are sweet spots for them and that they should just be doing better than they are doing. And that's how I felt about our goaltenders in that, I thought it would be nice for them not to have the full workload of a full NHL season on their shoulders, in that if they were ever cold, would be able to go to another hand. And if you have 3, you would likely not run into 3 cold goalies all at the same time. And we did. And then when they were cold, one of them got injured as well. Yeah, 2 of them got injured.
Like, that thought process makes a ton of sense. But the one thing we really didn't account for is an injury throws a wrench in that plan, because now you've got 2 goalies and it's much easier for one of them to get cold. And unfortunately, Reimer, like we said, just hasn't been very good, period.
Yeah. I mean, we prepared for an injury. That's why we had Reimer. That's why we have, an older Hutchinson down in the AHL right now. We understood that, like, Kos is our only real prospect, and we weren't going to be able to make a big splash in free agency, because anyone who's out there saying trade for a goalie right now, tell me which one. Tell me what you want to trade for, and if you are also willing to give up prospects like Bergeron and Edvinsson, because any goalie that you want to trade for that's going to be able to perform to the level that this team needs right now is going to demand that capital. Will absolutely need that kind of return in that trade. If you're looking at like a John Gibson out of Anaheim,
trade him Petrie, or like that's their they like people will list all the players they don't want on their team and thinking a team's going to take that and give you something you do want.
Like Anaheim's going to want an aging defenseman right now. Just try to think for a second when you're coming up with those. But I think goalies need to be able to make mistakes. I think it's one of the most difficult positions in all of sports. And you see the biggest, the best, the baddest goalies in the entire league have some weak goals go in. It's going to happen. But the number of good opportunities that the Red Wings give up per game versus how many we get, it's actually like astounding how we can just keep giving up 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, and then when we're in those situations, we play them poorly. It's not just these situations keep happening, but it's like when you see a 3-on-2 and you see like Fabry, Kopp, and Sprong, right? The confidence should be is that we're going to get a very high quality opportunity out of this. We rarely do. When we have those chances, it always feels like something just doesn't connect right. The defense actually play it right and move on from it. When it happens to us, it's like we don't even play the shooter sometimes. We just let them take the shot. And you're like, well, that's a really good scoring opportunity. And we just gave it to them. Like, we do our goalies no favors. And the most disgusting stat that I have heard about the Red Wings in a long time, Josh, is that we have not won a single game all year, right, where we haven't scored more than 4 goals or 4 goals or more, one of the two, whichever one it is. That's awful. We have never won 3-2, 3-1, 2-1. Just haven't. That's inexplicably bad. And that isn't just the goalies need to do better. I was going to say,
that's usually the reflex answer is like, well, that's because our goalies stink.
You're right. They haven't played fantastic. They haven't played to a Vezina caliber level. But damn, watch the games. Okay? And when your goalie that you don't like doesn't do well, don't just like say that we need to give it to Hutchinson. Hutchinson is in the AHL for a reason. Okay? There's a reason no other team wanted him when he wanted an NHL gig, and he didn't get it. Like, that's, I guess it's mean to say about Hutchinson. Maybe, sure, he's a great guy. You're in the AHL for a reason. You're not a backup on a contending team for a reason. An absolute mess right now. And this is like, if you can just over the next month, like figure each little bit by bit, figure out like what needs to happen with team defense because it's so poor right now. And then hopefully one of your goalies gets hot. Maybe Lyon just kind of gets to an acceptable level of an NHL caliber goaltender again, or Reimer can do that, or Husso comes back. But right now, this is just an absolute steaming pile. And you're asking your offense to score 5 goals a game. That's not happening.
Hutch, I think you're great. I think you're a great guy. I don't know what he's on about. I'm sure you just wanted to play for the Griffins and that was your dream. So I don't know what he's talking about.
They said on the broadcast he wanted to play in Winnipeg. He wanted to play in Winnipeg because his wife has like a bakery out there and they didn't take him. Like, that sucks. But like, just saying, like, just going down the list every time of, man, we gave up so many goals. Well, now it needs to be Lyon. Oh, well, Lyon sucked. Well, now we got to go Reimer. Well, Reimer sucked. Now we got to go Hutchinson. Stop. If you have 4 issues, if you have 4 goalies that are all an issue every game and why you're giving up 4 or 5 goals, look at the other common denominator in each one of those in the team that's in front of them. They can't all be that bad all the time. They just can't. I got mad.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a second. I'm gonna give you a second to bring it because we got a whole other section. You gotta like.
And I'm gonna get mad about that too. I'm just mad.
We got to bring it down a little bit. Bring it down.
Lions last night just got me angry.
So like I said, they have dropped to 5th in the division. 2 points out of a wild card spot, 3 points out of one of the top 3 spots that has been taken by Toronto. Where, I mean, honestly, I hadn't checked the standings through the holiday. I thought we fell further. So I was honestly a little bit pleasantly surprised that, yeah, there's games in hand. There's whatever. It's gets old trying to keep track of that so perfectly. But looking at it, I mean, it is at least positive to think that, okay, you're like a tiny stretch of decency from being like right back up in a more comfortable spot. So I'm at least happy to know that we haven't fallen down to like an Ottawa level of disappointment yet. But yeah, what's your thoughts?
I mean, we're 3 points behind Toronto. We have 3 more games played than them. We're 1 point behind Tampa Bay, same games played. Ultimately, if you just took a screenshot of the entire season and you showed this to me at the start of the year and said, this is where you are, I'd accept it. I'd say that, yeah, that's understandable. That's kind of where I would expect us to be at the end of the season. So yeah, if you're halfway through, sure, that's fine. The problem that I have is that like the room that we have for these highs and lows, because we've seen a really high and a really low, this low has to stop. It's got to come back to playing some 500 hockey again for a little while, winning a couple more games and you're losing here or there. Because right now, we've done the complete inverse in just a month on our playoff chances. We made a video a month ago on the 4th December. 72.2% chance of making the playoffs. Right now, we're at 23.8. We have dropped like half our chance to make a playoffs just statistically in a matter of a month. And the season's like, the season's like 5-6 months long. So in 20% of the season,
half,
yeah, like that's significant. That's a significant drop. Like, it is nice that we didn't drop that far, and it's kudos to how hot we started. But you eventually got to right this ship, and the time and the space to right it is just running out.
They definitely had the opportunity to bounce back on Tuesday. They could try to make up for the. I don't even want to talk too much about the previous time we played them, but they played the Sharks on Tuesday. But they're making their whole California trip. They're hitting the Sharks, the Kings, and then the Ducks. What's your quick prediction? How you think those will go?
You got to go 2-1. Like that's kind of games where other people in the Eastern Conference are going out to the Pacific, in the Central, and it really feels like the bottoms of those divisions are significantly worse than the bottoms out of the East. So I think you really got to beat the Sharks. You really got to beat the Ducks. Even if, and this is the big thing, you can take them to overtime. Giving them points doesn't mean a thing to us. We need to just simply get our 2 points. So if you can take the Kings to like an OTL, cool. Like, that's fantastic. You got your points. Yeah. Like,
we are at the point where we need them.
But when you play the Western Conference teams, it's no longer like, oh yeah, you got to make sure that you try to beat them in regulation so you don't also help them and they get half their points. No, just play a full hockey game. Go to OT if you need to, but make sure that we're winning those games, because, man, those teams are not great. And like you said, if you're looking for your bounce back, if you think that this Boston game is at all a sign of this team starting to improve, I don't necessarily feel the exact same way as that. I'm not looking at that game and being like, oh man, that was like a really good, hard fought game, and I'm glad we're doing this. The time for that with me is kind of over. I felt that like a few games ago, maybe 5-6 losses ago. I was like, all right, yeah, like we played well there. It's a short string with me right now. Just start to play better. Start to show that you are actively working towards the problems that you've had over the last month. And as much as like the offense started to perform a little better against Boston, defensively, still just an absolute mess. Still just relying on Lyon to play like a Vezina candidate to win a hockey game. 2-1 is a necessity.
If you guys can't tell, Billy's still a little cranky. This is if you're looking back on this a little later, this is the day after the Lions and Cowboys game, so there's a little bit of.
I also just had a brutal day myself, so
yeah, still a little cranky on the Cowboys Lions thing, but Pistons won.
Pistons won at the cost of the Lions.
Better year for 2024 for all 4 of these teams.